This is New York City, Battery Park, is because this is what was there, a battery. Also in New York, think of another picture, Wall Street is literally where the wall of the walled city was in New Amsterdam. Every city basically was a star city. It had these stars around them, but they were all walled, but also somatic shapes. These are the moats, we're told, right? Because we're all taught that castles and, were these square buildings with a moat. But when we can see them from above, there's these intricate somatic patterns. And clearly you can see why we call them star forts, because they look like stars. These are in the US, South America, Africa, Europe, and even Australia. But we're told they were all built between the mid-1500s and the 1700s. But Australia wasn't found until 1788. This is obviously our cathedral. So this is what we call antiquity, because all these features, we see them just everywhere, all these spires and bits and pieces. And, we started wondering, what is it all? And when you look at the makeup of it, this is all basically antennas to pull in etheric energy. And when we see a lot of this stuff that's been demolished and the columns and things, they're all full of rebar and iron and all this iron strapping. And then we get these photos, 1904, St. Louis, Missouri, World's Fair. So this is a later one, but we've got pictures of these types of things from the 1880s, like literally a couple of years after electricity and the light bulb and everything was supposed to be invented. We get these pictures of just lit up cities of the World's Fairs. Here's another one. This is an obelisk, or was, and you can see it's just full of metal. You can see that's the antenna, and it's directly connected through metal all the way down into the ground. Look at the intricacy they go to for these chapels, right? And these, when you look into it, these are all electrical components.
Across Eastern Europe with the star forts as well as the canals, it's that you can see it's also in like Shanghai, China from the 1500s and back, throughout Germany, throughout Russia, and that the canals actually still go through, like for instance in Russia. Yeah, so here's one in Portugal, one of the star forts, the huge amount of terraforming around it, and amazingly this one is still in pretty much pristine condition, compared to the destruction of most of the ones you find today, or some of the rebuilt kind of facaded but more destroyed average star fort. But this one, you can see the main four spire star fort design, and then one of these fractal geometric crowns, I guess, going to the west or to the left there of it. And that this great wall of Tartaria that we're going to show you, it's actually one of these, but not potentially, who knows, maybe back when they were built in their prime, each one of those star forts could have been one of these. Archaeologists really got to start digging around, or the LiDAR and stuff, to see. And often they do have vast underground complexes and chambers and caves and buildings, foundations that you find in these star forts. Even like, for instance, the Statue of Liberty is built on the base of one of these. And there's so many with the canals, the earthworks, the artificial islands of this culture, this technology, and this building. It's just insane, the terraforming around it. And then when we show you this Great Wall of Tartaria, it incorporates both you'll see the canal network going up the Dnieper River. It starts, I believe, either in the Sea of Azov or to the left of it, the Kherson region of Ukraine, where I'm talking about where this Great Wall of Tartaria, we've dubbed it, and it runs across all of up from the Black Sea there, through the heart, up the Dnieper River, and then it splits off east across all of northeastern Ukraine, and we'll show you the plotted course of it and go along a bit of it that me and Campbell had gone through and on Google Earth and found, and it's literally every kilometer across this, like thousands of kilometers of there's Campbell, of this Great Wall of Tartaria, that there's one of these buried star forts, the exact same four-petaled basic imprints of these star forts. And then there's the vast, like each of the, whether it's Berlin, whether it's Moscow, whether it's New York, whether it's Shanghai, whether it's pretty much any city, Havana, wherever, Brazil, like every single city metropolitan that existed 500 years ago, 400 years ago, that there's a map of, it's built in this Canal Star Fort, Star City Citadel style and layout.
That's what I'm talking about. Campbell, we have another star with us. So now we've created the Star Empire. And looking forward to hearing this information. I'm really actually, I know very little about these star forts and Tartaria. Some of the information that I have found out outside of you guys, I'm very skeptical about. So I know so little that I'm just going to give you guys an open platform here. And if I have questions, I'll jump in, but I appreciate you very much being guests on the Leak Project Network. And I know you have a lot to share with us. So how the heck are you? I mean, what's been going on? It's been too long.
Thanks for having us. I just came back from Melbourne. Melbourne's just crazy. Melbourne, Australia. It was actually founded by Mr. Batman, and it's literally like Gotham City. It's like full of these amazing old buildings everywhere, and so that was cool. We actually did a live event there, so that was good fun. And I've just been working, lots of editing.
Right on. Right on. So who's the Joker?
Of course, sorry?
Who's the Joker?
Who's the Joker? Oh, yeah, well, I think it's Dan Andrews.
Okay.
Dan Andrews, the premier, the communist premier who locked everyone down. That's got to be the Joker, right?
No.
Hello.
Yeah. He's competing with Trustin Judo. Sorry, my country.
True joke.
Right on, man. Well, I didn't mean to throw a wrench out there. Yeah, really looking forward to it. So stop.
Just a pretext of like Tartaria and essentially like this reset sort of idea. The maps we're going to be showing from a few hundred years ago, that a lot of the facades that you see on these brick buildings, on these old world buildings, on these Greek or these Orthodox or any sacred, any ones throughout history, like the cathedrals, the castles, all of them, that it's actually what the facade was them rebranding, redating, resetting the story and the build date, and that it was reclaimed, it was refound land, it was rebuilt. So a lot of the pictures, you don't ever see the basements. You now see, like across India, across all of the world, another term, mudflood, is that there's these layers, archaeological layers, that somehow happened in their claimed build dates of 100 to 200 years, supposedly, that they're built, yet now they're digging out 2 layers deeper that there's not on the official blueprints, that nobody knew about, these fully fortified, like huge buildings with windows and everything, and these new layers, and they're like, oh my gosh, it was so much bigger. And it's like, where did it come from? And okay, what is this facade now? And, you know, these robber barons that supposedly came to the new world, and was there actually an old world that had, you know, some sort of like free electricity, or understanding of like DC electricity or hydroelectricity, so that sort of stuff, atmospheric electricity, and like the steam engines and all of that. And maybe it's not as far-fetched that, you know, we were a lot more advanced in the wizards, the magic, as well as like the holy, you know, experience and stuff was actually just technologies that we know today as and call technology.
Yes, so there you go. But this is the thing. I mean, and just in Melbourne, we were walking around, and literally, you see one building, and it's designated as, you know, a church or a cathedral, and then the building next to it has got all the same features, all the cathedral windows, everything, and it's a bank. And then, like, next to that, there's something, you know, the same feet. It's the same building, but, you know, it might be something else. So it's like they redesignate all these buildings. So we say that, you know, they weren't founded, they were found. So I've got some pics I can share my screen. Are we live? Are we on YouTube?
We are live on the website right now, leakproject.com, where the shows are always live. And when they're live, they're free, unedited, uncensored. The guests can ask questions in the chat. And so, folks, you want to join us here every Friday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time for Bernie, the Mad Alchemist, and Campbell. Now, Campbell, how was it? Autodidact?
Autodidactic. That's how you say it with, you know, an Australian accent, but
autodidactic. That's not a knife. That was terrible. I'm so sorry. I'm going to edit that out, folks. Okay. I'm hitting the mute button right now, brother.
Autodidactic. Ah, whoops. Okay, sorry. I was just watching the stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just getting the link. Okay, I'm ready here. Yeah, autodidactic, which means to be self-educated. And of course, we need to be self-educated, because if we're not, the only choice we have left is to believe what other people tell us. And we can see what's going on at the moment, right? So I'm just going to share your link in my Telegram group. Excuse me. And then I'm going to share the screen. This is obviously our cathedral. So this is what we look at a lot with, you know, this is what we call antiquity, because all these features, we see them just everywhere, all these, you know, spires and bits and pieces. And, you know, we started wondering, what is it all? And when you look at the makeup of it, this is all, they're basically antennas to pull in etheric energy. And you can see it, you know, the domes are also, how do I move this? Also in there, but we see this stuff everywhere. And this is like a house. You know, what we're told is a house. We can see we've got these same features, these same spires on the high bits, lots of iron. And when we see a lot of this stuff that's been, you know, demolished, and the columns and things, they're all full of rebar and iron and all this iron strapping. And then we get these photos, 1904, St. Louis, Missouri, World's Fair. So this is a later one, but we've got pictures of these types of things from the 1880s, like literally a couple of years after electricity and the light bulb and everything was supposed to be invented. We get these pictures of just lit up, you know, cities with the World's Fairs. But there's no explanation as to who put the electricity and where all the wiring came from. You know, how all these things, like everything we look into, there's no story of how they were built. It's literally, you know, this guy built it, and they give you one name. And then if you look into, you know, where was the rock quarried, where did the glass come from, where did the metal come from? There's no evidence for anything. It's really bizarre. But I mean, look at the intricacy of this spire, right? You can see some wires hanging off there. But we're told this is all, you know, for the glory of God. And I mean, look at the size of this place too. You can see the people down here, you know, doorways up here. And so, you know, what is God, right? What is the glory of God? What are they talking about here? this is an old world city, a picture from, I believe it's in America, like one of the world's fairs. But we see these everywhere. These, I don't know what they are. What are these, Bernie? Some kind of like grid antenna,
it's a
but they're wireless.
Waveguide antenna. Sorry, yeah, I will hold myself for the questions and not interrupt you, especially from you in Australia, me in Canada, and Rex in Colorado there recording that. I don't want to screw it up and talk over each other. So yeah, it's fractal waveguide antennas, and they're for harnessing and transferring atmospheric electricity, and it's the electrical potential differential between the tops of the spires, and then as Campbell mentioned, the domes, and then they have these iron connecting rods, and they try to claim that rebar is a recent invention, but you go into these cathedrals that are thousands of years old, and they're connected from these metal domes down through the red bricks. And it's that also lately they've come out and stated that these bricks can be used as batteries through these superconducting materials and the dipole differential between it.
Yes. And so you can see like just all the buildings, and this would probably be designated a government building, but same thing, right? Domes all over them, spires, these what are called sort of belfry bits up there. But the other thing is they're all in horse and cart, right? And they're surrounded by these amazing buildings and this architecture that, we can't replicate this today. And it looks like, free energy too, right? Or at least the remnants of some kind of free energy, system. But we just see it everywhere. Another dome here. And we see this a lot, this antenna, and, see how it looks kind of cross-like. So they'll leave that and say, oh, it's Christian, it's Catholic, but they're not. They're just antennas. And then, sometimes we see the half moons and they say, oh, that, we'll designate that as Arabic or Islamic. But then, you go into a country that's not Islamic and you see the same thing. But it's just the intricacy and the detail they put into everything. And the thing is, look at the information that's encoded. Just looking at this, you could sit here and stare at this for hours. But what they build today, these square, black boxes, there's no information encoded in them. Like there's nothing there. And here you see this is an old, these are what we're told are, thousands of years old. Obviously it's been, reconstructed. You can see all the cracks in these pillars. And what do we have here? But we have rebar coming out of the top of this pillar. We see this stuff everywhere. And, there's big questions over a lot of these sites. Because, look at this. This has clearly been rebuilt. And so we don't know if this is the way it was. That they've redone Stonehenge. Here's another one. This is an obelisk, or was. And you can see it's just full of metal. You can see that's the antenna. And it's directly connected through metal all the way down into the ground. So this is, what we sort of think they're all solid stone, right? Indeed, yeah. So everything, and that sort of first came out with the pyramids too. How they build the pyramids, and I think it was David DeVitos. I think is that how you say it? Came out and said they're geopolymer, and now we're looking around, and it looks like everything's geopolymer. We see the walls with, you can't fit a human hair between the bricks. It's because they were laid wet, is what we're finding out. They were literally poured in bags as geopolymer. And then we get things like this, right? We get this, you can see, we've got this city built up, but they're doing excavation work. And this happens all the time, right? They go to build a new building, they start digging down, and you can see these would have been popping out of the ground, but clearly goes down. There's even looks like a doorway down here. There's another one sticking up here, and it's got a whole building underneath it too. So this is what has been termed the mudflood. You can see how much it is. It's as high as that at least. A lot of buildings seem to be half underground. That there's been, a catastrophe that we haven't been told about. And, catastrophism used to be taught. It used to be common knowledge that there were regular catastrophes. But that information has been held back from us for the last sort of century or so about these regular catastrophes. But, the evidence is everywhere. And look at this. This is just a church, right? They're just all the same features. And this, of course, we see heaps. these doorways, and they're so big that they literally go and they cut a smaller doorway in for the, because why so big? And you get this in Australia, which is a brand new, colony pretty much. When everything was built, everything was supposed to be built 1860s to 1880s. When Australia was less than 100 years old, and they build things like this in Australia, 3 times as big as they need to be, which requires 3 times the materials, 3 times the workers, 3 times everything, which doesn't make sense. But I mean, just look at the intricacy they go to for these chapels, right? And these, when you look into it, these are all electrical components. And of course, we have these cymatic, shapes and windows, the rose windows, the stained glass, they're all cymatic shapes. And the shapes and the motifs and they're just repeated on all these buildings, from Australia to America to Europe. It's all the same, which is what, is telling us that this was, a worldwide previous civilization. They just kind of say, oh no, it was built like that because it was a revival style or, something, like this. But yeah, so here we go. Piano notes. And as you can see, these are all cymatic. A sharp, B, C, and they're all these cymatic shapes. Now you get these, obviously they look like, things like snowflakes, but we also see these in the work of Dr. Emoto, where he freezes water and through intention, he either speaks to the water or sticks notes on it saying, I love you or I hate you. And when he says, I love you, he gets these perfect, geometric patterns. When he says, I hate you, it's just this goop. And so these are also like, the windows, right, on the cathedrals. So these are cathedral windows, this line here. These are, rose windows, or they're all in cathedrals. And these are cymatic patterns, which are created through frequency. So either harmonics or intention. And, they're exactly the same, right? Down here we have, it says these are DNA. This is our DNA. So these are fractals or cymatic patterns of our DNA. So this is what he gets. This is Dr. Masaru Emoto's work. So when he got glass and he stuck, and he literally just had to stick the words on it for a week, then he freezes it and photographs it. And this is you full, just, no shape, no geometric pattern or anything. And this is thank you. And that, of course, also, apart from looking, pretty much like a snowflake, it's looks like a star fort, which we'll show a few photos of in a minute. But this is what we get when it's good intention. We get these perfect, geometrical shapes, and when it's bad intention, we get this goop, right? So this is like a polluted river, and this is like a clean river. And so if we tie this back to the cathedrals that have got these windows, right, and they're connected to the ether with all these spires. And then what else do we have in cathedrals but these things called organs, right? And we have these things called organs in our body. And we just, the DNA, cymatic is the same as some frequencies in these windows. So what this is all looking like is these are healing factories, or not even healing, wellness, I guess, just to keep people well. They were pumping out frequencies into the greater communities, but also you could go in there because in all these places we have domes, and under the domes there's always these cymatic patterns and like this place that you can stand where the sound's focused. Here you go. This is all music, Mozart, Imagine, and this is I Will Kill You, right? Peace, thank you. So this is water from a polluted river, and this is the same water after someone's offered a prayer to it. And so this is what Bernie was saying, we're 70% water. So literally every molecule of water in your body is making one of these shapes. So the question is, what shape are you making? Because the way you do that is with intention, right? And with sound, which is what we speak. So what we think and what we speak literally changes us. It literally changes the makeup, the frequency of who and what we are. And there's just some more these are tones played through water, like so different musical tones. And again, we're seeing the same thing everywhere. And of course, this is not the best picture. I mean, look at the information encoded just in this, in this photo. These are cymatic windows in a cathedral, right? So again, I mean, it's a bit of a small picture, but you can see it's the same stuff, right? So these are all, and we've been told, all the time, everything is energy, everything is frequency, right? So this is, this is looking at sound. Literally, we're looking at sound. This is the shapes that make it up. So I'll just get rid of that, and we'll have a bit of a look at some star forts, which are all, everywhere across the world. Again, we get these same features. This is a star fort. And so this is, it's actually like, they call them star forts. They're, clearly not built for war, but they try and tell us they were. But this is like a citadel part. So this is just a smaller part of a much bigger structure, because what we've now found out is every city basically was a star city. It had these stars around them, but they were all walled, and you can kind of see, a bit of the old wall there, but also cymatic shapes, right? And look at this, these are the moats, we're told, right? Because we're all taught that castles and, were these square buildings with a moat. But when we can see them from above, there's these intricate, cymatic patterns. And clearly you can see why we call them star forts, because they look like stars. And these are literally everywhere. And it's the same thing. These are in, the US, South America, Africa, Europe, and even Australia. But we're told they were all built between the mid-1500s and the 1700s. But Australia wasn't found until 1788, which causes a bit of a problem. This is in the Netherlands, and as you can see, this is 5-pointed. And in the middle, we have a pentagon. And then on the outside, you'll see there'll be 5 detached 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bits. Then it sort of explodes out, but they're all based on geometry as well. There's another 5-pointer, and these things are literally everywhere. And this one is a bit more intricate, but just to show you the size of how big they are, like this is a big 2-story building.
And this is actually a close-up, a different angle of the star fort picture in Portugal that is the cover photo of the stream itself.
Yes, yeah, that will be coming up. But yeah, so you can see that these were, I mean, this was almost a city in itself. That's like a castle. This is a 2-story building down here. These are all 2-story buildings. So this thing, I mean, you can imagine the amount of rock and material that went into this, without even talking about the effort and transporting it there, because they're all built on, on hills, right? Here's another one built on a hill. So you got to get all the stuff up there. I mean, the truth is that the hill is probably, the rest of the staff being covered up. But, again, we look into these stories and they just don't make sense. That they kind of say, oh, well, they were having a war, so they just built this fort in 6 months. The soldiers just whacked it up. I mean, this is Fort McHenry. This is in the US.
And all of these at a time that supposedly there was no electricity, no power tools, no nothing, right? So it's like, how? And like the moats, the water, the canals that connect it all, and that we'll show you some maps here before it's all done of the old world cities of them, and then the canals that connect through. It's across the entire continents, and the amount of terraforming, and then it makes you take a relook at like even North America and the Great Lake canals and all of that, and over through Eastern Canada and stuff, all of that. But that's a story for another day. I will let Campbell continue into it.
Yes. So in this one, I think this is in the Netherlands, but in all of them, you'll see this is a cathedral. They've all got these cathedrals sort of in the middle of these star city. It's all connected. It's all one system. And of course, there's water everywhere. And what we're discovering now, again, Paul Cook's done some good research on this, is all these cathedrals seem to have these big cisterns under them, big water holding tanks. And so it's almost like, they were the charging sort of stations that were charging the water, right, with all these good frequencies. And then that was going out into the fountains, right, because the old world was full of these fountains. And then we get these funny stories. Like, again, I was in Melbourne, and the story is that it was built like it was fully, like there's a picture, and it was fully built out in 1884. And then the story is, but they had no plumbing until 1889. So they want us to believe that they built the city and then they went back and what?
Everywhere, but no public, no toilets in your house.
There's like, fountains everywhere. But yeah, how do you retrofit a plumbing system or a sewage system, right, under a city? And if you're that advanced to build a city that fast and that big, I'm pretty sure you'd think about sewage. So we just get all these silly, silly stories. Here's another one. This one, I can't remember. I think it's in Europe somewhere, this one.
That might be in Asia too. That one might have been in Asia. There's lots throughout, like
there is a lot in Asia, yeah.
China, Korea even.
Yep. And they're all these different, they all sort of seem to be designed for the space, for where they are. They're all slightly different. So
and look at the river there. Look at the canal city that it builds in. And it's like, we'll show you these maps that are like 500 years and older, that it's like they've already built that canal. That river has already been built. And then you go in and you look, it's all megalithic brickwork, this ancient, like huge stuff that there's no accounting for, but clearly it was made by some sort of civilization at one point, but not who they're claiming did it.
Exactly. I mean, that's another thing we've noticed is, if you've got a river in your city or town, go and have a look at it and check out the shorelines, and you'll find, a lot of these shorelines are man-made, and they're a man-made canal because so many of them have like equidistant banks, right? For they're dead straight.
And not just that, though. I've started noticing lots of them, and especially through the Great Lakes area in North America. And I started noticing these Tesla valves built into it. And it's like, suppose the Tesla valve is like a valve system of hydraulic pressure that Nikola Tesla invented that like actually steadies the flow rate and like prevents currents, erosions, gives you the straight everything, and keeps it perfect. And it's like, this was already pre-built in before and created before Tesla even existed. And then you start seeing these repeated over and over and over and over and over again in all of these old world star cities.
Yeah, it's just mad. And I mean, the way we got onto this is we just, you look at the story they give us, and then we go out and we actually look at what's out there at the actual, sorry, I'm just playing with my screen again. At the actual what we've got in the physical world, and it just doesn't make sense. The stories do not match up. And this is a top view of that one that we were looking at before, where Bernie said it was the thumbnail. So this Portugal, is in Portugal, yeah. And I mean, look at the edges here, and these are. I mean, we saw how big these buildings were. These are huge, and look, they're just these perfectly straight, angled geometric legs. I don't know what they are.
So Campbell, I gotta pause you on one part of that. So what me and Rex were talking about prior to you joining us is that we took the same picture from the Ferram Foundation research, and it's that he actually took this one right here and did his geoglyphs to it and got that same geoglyph map out of this particular one. So now it's the potential that each one of these could be the same geoglyph network, and as every citadel's earthworks now, the map to everywhere else in the world. And boom, does that rewrite all history? Like, whew.
Yeah. Bernie's excited. So what he was saying is each one of these points coming off, if you extend them out over the world, they'll match. They link up with other, either stars or old world sites, or so there's this map, there's this grid and that's what's being hidden as well. And we theorize that it was tied to free electricity, free energy. And that's, of course, what they've taken, right? They've stolen the power, and then now they get us to go and vote, to keep them in power. It's crazy, right? We're just everywhere. Like, this is just in the middle of some town, and it's been turned into a sports field or something, and you see this stuff everywhere. Oh, sorry, Bernie, I thought you were going to speak.
Oh, so I was just going to say a little pretense of like how you're saying the power, and that that ties back into another awesome researcher that Rex, you've had on before as well, that me and Campbell have done lots of work with, and we're going to do a couple more coming up with Michelle Gibson and her circuit board Earth, and we're going to try to have her, Paul Cook, and the two of us together again for putting together these power systems. And now it's like a battery. The Star Fort is also known as a battery. I can't even get into it. She does such a great job of it. You've got it a lot more.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That they've taken all these over, and they could tell us that they're forts, right? They're all built for war. And of course, they call them batteries. And, when you've got your troops, you charge, right? Charge. There's all these electrical terms. There's many more that I can't think of now, but all these words as well seem to be tied in. Even voting, right? But you go between the polls, right? The polling booths, between Boaz and Joachim, and put them into power. And all this weird stuff. So there's so much, like spell casting going on as well. They've really, they've just, what they've done is changed our perspective, so we can't see what's really there. That's how they, hidden in plain sight kind of stuff. This is Amsterdam. So this is one of the old maps Bernie was talking about. I'm not sure of the date on this. It'll probably be somewhere, but 1600s, most of these are. And you can see, apart from the fact that this is a completely built out and clearly designed, city and walled, right? They're all walled. This has canals everywhere. See, these are canals. You can see the water here, and these clearly man-made canals that go everywhere. And the amount of bridges in these cities was ridiculous. Here's the main canal. They always have like a main sort of grand canal, all man-made. And then for some reason, they always seem to have an island, some kind of island in them.
Kind of looks like an industrial trade area within the city sort of thing, kind of like how you see rail yards, but it's more like, what's that Italian city or the shaking hand there? Venice, right? It's Venice, like every city was Venice, essentially.
Yeah.
In this realm and world, only a few hundred years ago, every single city, as we'll show you, because you can literally Google any city of the old world from the 1600s and back, and it will come up in these star fort shapes, and every single one is like Venice, and there's canals everywhere. Those were the highways of the time, but they were also so much more, with all of like this hidden technology, infrastructure, and buried history.
Indeed, yeah. And you can see this one, again, always these big cathedrals in the cities, but here's one of the stars, right, or batteries attached into the wall. And there's even another one of these more sort of irregular shaped ones out here, but they always have these stars attached, to these star cities. And again, the canals, and, you can see this is a big island kind of thing as well. But the thing is with water's free energy. You float a boat, you use the current, right? The current.
You have the wind, not a windmill, but the water wheels. What are water wheels? Water wheels are harvesting electrical, like power. Not necessarily, it could be electricity just as much as it was the physical power and mechanical power that they used out of it. What's to say that, windmills and water wheels weren't actually generating hydroelectric and wind power a few 500 years ago?
Indeed. I mean, yeah. And this
or
is
further back if the big
further,
reset
yeah.
happened before, and then just the leftover remnants after some sort of giant catastrophe or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what we see everywhere. This is a drawing. This is New York City, right? Battery Park is because this is what was there, a battery. And also in New York, think of another picture, Wall Street is literally where the wall of the walled city was.